The conference room lights buzzed like a swarm of angry hornets, casting harsh shadows across the polished mahogany table. Emily Harlan sat there, her fingers drumming a silent rhythm on her notepad. As Derek Voss, the golden boy with his father's last name stamped on his forehead, flashed a grin that could sell sand in the desert. He'd just unveiled the slide deck, the one she'd poured 18 months of her life into, mapping out every regulatory twist and financial knot for the Apex initiative. But there was his name, bold and unapologetic. Right at the top, Derek Voss, Director of Strategic Innovation. No mention of her. Not a whisper. The stakeholders nodded approvingly, murmuring about fresh perspectives and bold visions. Emily felt the heat rise in her chest. Not from anger exactly, but from the slow boil of something deeper, years of being the invisible architect in a house full of showy decorators. When Derek casually dismissed the compliance checkpoint she'd insisted on, saying, "We can streamline that. No need to bog down progress with red tape," she couldn't hold it anymore. Her voice cut through the room, steady but sharp. "Skipping that step isn't streamlining. It's inviting a federal probe. We've got SEC guidelines breathing down our necks." Derek's smile faltered, his cheeks flushing like overripe fruit. He snapped his laptop closed with a thud that echoed her words. The meeting ended in awkward silence. But Emily knew the real storm was brewing. She'd seen it before in this cutthroat world of New York finance, where nepotism wore a suit and tie. Gregory Voss, the CEO and Derek's doting father, had built Voss Capital from a scrappy hedge fund into a Wall Street powerhouse. But he did it on the backs of people like her, quiet, competent, and conveniently forgettable. That night, as rain pelted her apartment window in Brooklyn, her phone lit up with a message from Gregory. "Step back from the project until you make amends with Derek publicly." No frills, no politeness, just a command from on high. Emily stared at it, her coffee growing cold in her mug. She wasn't surprised. She'd anticipated this since Derek waltzed in fresh from his Ivy League MBA, treating her expertise like an optional footnote. With a deep breath, she typed back, "Fine." Then she reached into her desk drawer for the file she'd safeguarded for years, a manila envelope labeled Employment Addendum, IP Protections. It was from the merger 5 years ago, when Voss Capital absorbed a rival firm amid champagne toasts and pink slips. Amid the chaos, Emily had quietly renegotiated her contract, slipping in Clause 17.2c, any intellectual property, frameworks, or strategic models developed by the employee without formal assignment remain solely owned by the employee unless explicitly licensed or transferred. Legal had skimmed it, HR had stamped it, and no one batted an eye because she wasn't the type to make waves. She just delivered results that kept the firm afloat through market crashes and regulatory minefields. Now, as she leafed through the pages, a quiet resolve settled over her. Derek could parade her work as his own for now. Let him build his tower on borrowed foundations. She'd watch it teeter from afar. The next morning, the office hummed with the usual frenzy, traders shouting into headsets, analysts buried in screens flickering with stock tickers. Derek arrived late, his designer shoes clicking against the marble floor, exuding that effortless confidence only trust fund kids could muster. He didn't glance her way as he commandeered the team huddle, rebranding her meticulous risk assessments as his agile breakthroughs. Emily observed from her corner desk, noting every alteration he made, slashing the audit trails, swapping legal safeguards for flashy buzzwords like disruptive synergy. She documented it all, timestamps, emails, version histories, in a private cloud folder. Her digital insurance policy. It wasn't vengeance fueling her, it was pragmatism. In this game, shouting got you labeled hysterical. But evidence? That was a silent killer. Weeks blurred into a rhythm of exclusion. Derek sidelined her from key meetings, crediting her innovations to team efforts, while Gregory looked on with paternal pride. Emily endured the whispers in the break room, the pitying glances from colleagues who knew the truth but valued their paychecks more. One evening, as she packed her bag under the dim glow of her desk lamp, Mia, a sharp young intern she'd mentored, lingered nearby. "This is bullshit," Mia whispered. "Everyone knows Apex is your baby." Emily smiled faintly. "Sometimes you have to let the storm pass." But inside, the tension coiled tighter, like a spring compressed to its limit. She knew Derek's shortcuts would unravel soon enough. The Apex initiative wasn't just internal fluff, it was a bid for a massive government contract, tied to federal oversight on financial innovations. Skipping those compliance layers wasn't bold, it was reckless. And with her IP clause lurking in the shadows, it was a ticking bomb. As the submission deadline loomed, Emily felt the pressure build. Not on her, but on them. Derek's bravado masked his cracks. She saw it in his hurried emails, his skipped lunches. Gregory hovered more, micromanaging in ways that screamed insecurity. Emily, meanwhile, polished her resume and networked quietly with old contacts in D.C., planting seeds for what came next. The day before the big pitch, Derek called a last-minute review in the glass-walled war room overlooking Manhattan's skyline. He paced like a peacock, clicking through slides that bore her fingerprints everywhere, the data flows, the contingency models, even the subtle color gradients she'd chosen for clarity. When he glossed over the regulatory matrix, Emily interjected again, her voice calm as steel. "That matrix isn't optional. It's the firewall against SEC violations." Derek wheeled on her, eyes narrowing. "We're past paranoia, Emily. This is about vision." The room tensed, but she held his gaze. "Vision without foundation crumbles," he stormed out, muttering about insubordination. That sealed it. Emily knew the text from Gregory would come, and it did, demanding her apology. Her "fine" was the key turning in the lock. She resigned the next morning, leaving a terse note on Derek's desk, effective immediately. IP ownership reverts per Clause 17.2c. He probably chuckled, tossing it aside. But as she walked out into the crisp autumn air, box in hand, she felt the first crack of release. The building loomed behind her, but she didn't look back. Instead, she headed to a quiet cafe and fired up her laptop, filing her own IP disclosures with the federal agency, her frameworks, her models, all time-stamped before their submission. Let the explosion come. The fallout started small, like a distant rumble. Derek submitted the Apex proposal that afternoon, high-fiving his cronies in the lobby as if he'd just conquered Everest. Gregory slapped him on the back during their weekly steak dinner at Del Frisco's, toasting to family legacy. But in the agency's D.C. offices, reviewers pored over the documents, cross-checking metadata and authorship trails. Emily's name popped up in the embedded logs, her initials in the code, her phrasing in the risk sections. Yet the submission listed Derek as sole architect, with no license transfer noted. Alarms flickered in the system. By evening, an automated flag hit Voss Capital's compliance inbox, query on IP ownership for submitted frameworks. Derek dismissed it as a glitch, forwarding it to IT with a curt "fix this." But IT bounced it to legal. And legal's lead attorney, Sarah Klein, blanched when she pulled up Emily's old contract. "Holy shit," she muttered, dialing Gregory at home. Clause 17.2c, it's airtight. Everything in Apex traces back to her. Without a transfer. We're using unlicensed IP in a federal bid. Gregory's voice cracked over the line. "She quit. Doesn't that void it?" Sarah's response was ice. "No. It activates it." Panic rippled through the executive suite the next day. Derek arrived to find his access revoked from the shared drives, files grayed out. Messages reading, owner disconnected. He hammered his keyboard, cursing under his breath, while Gregory barked orders from his corner office. The board convened an emergency Zoom, faces pixelated but fury clear. How much exposure? One demanded. Sarah laid it out, the bids in review. If they spot the mismatch, it's fraud territory. Fines, blacklisting from future contracts, could tank our quarter. Derek stammered defenses. It's just templates. But the room turned on him. Gregory's paternal shield cracked. He glared at his son like a bad investment. Emily, meanwhile, savored her morning run along the East River. Phone on silent. When she checked later, voicemails piled up. Gregory's assistant pleading for a call. Sarah offering amicable resolutions. She ignored them, instead meeting with Alex Rivera, a contact at the agency. Over coffee in a nondescript Georgetown spot, Alex leaned in. Your independent filing beat theirs by minutes. Clean, compliant, impressive. Emily nodded. I'm open to consulting through my LLC. Alex smiled. We'd prefer that. Bypasses the mess. By lunch, she'd inked a preliminary deal, her frameworks licensed directly, at $450 an hour. Back at Voss, the war room devolved into chaos. Derek paced, phone glued to his ear, begging favors from golf buddies in legal circles. It's a misunderstanding, he insisted. But the agency pinged back, clarification required on authorship. Discrepancies noted. Gregory slammed his fist on the desk, the sound echoing down the hall. You stole her work and didn't even cover your tracks? Derek's face crumpled. I thought she was out. The tension mounted as emails flew, board members demanding audits, investors whispering about pulling funds. Mia texted Emily discreetly. Office is a zoo. Derek's melting down. Emily replied with a simple thumbs-up emoji, feeling the slow release of years of swallowed pride. She wasn't gloating, this was justice, served cold and contractual. As days dragged, the firm stock dipped 3% on rumors of regulatory snags. Gregory called an all-hands, his voice strained over the speakers. We're addressing internal transitions. But whispers spread. Emily's revenge. The claws that bit back. Derek was sidelined to special projects, code for benchwarming. Emily's new life bloomed. Consulting gigs poured in from rival firms, drawn to her quiet legend. Yet the build-up lingered in her mind, a reminder of how silence could roar. One evening, as she reviewed her LLC's first invoice to the agency, her phone rang, Gregory himself. She let it go to voicemail, listening later to his halting plea. Emily, let's talk. We undervalued you. She deleted it, the explosion finally echoing in her favor. The aftershocks rippled wider than Emily expected. Voss Capital's board launched a full internal probe, digging through years of project logs like archaeologists unearthing a scandal. Emails surfaced, Derek's casual directives to repurpose her decks, Gregory's approvals stamped without question. The narrative shifted from bold innovation to systemic oversight failure. Investors grumbled in private calls, demanding accountability. Derek, once the heir apparent, found himself in endless HR sessions, grilled on ethics training he'd skipped. His confidence eroded, replaced by a hollow stare during meetings he now observed from the sidelines. Gregory aged overnight, his silver hair seeming grayer under the fluorescent lights, as he fielded calls from shareholders. Fix this, they barked. He tried, offering Emily a settlement via courier, 6 figures, NDA included. She sent it back unopened, with a note, consult my rates. The agency, meanwhile, greenlit her solo bid, praising the uncompromised integrity of her submission. Word spread in D.C. circles. Emily's phone buzzed with headhunters from think tanks and fintech startups. She took selective gigs, licensing her models to those who valued them, building a network on her terms. But the emotional undercurrent tugged at her, nights replaying the slights, the stolen credits, the paternal dismissals. It wasn't just about money. It was reclaiming her voice, even if whispered through legalese. One crisp fall afternoon, Mia met her for coffee in a cozy Brooklyn spot. "They're scrambling," Mia confided. "Derek's talking about leaving for new opportunities." Emily sipped her latte, a small smile playing on her lips. "Sometimes the foundation cracks from within." Mia nodded, eyes wide with admiration. Back at Voss, the tension peaked during a closed-door board meeting. Gregory defended Derek. "He's learning," but the room erupted. "Learning on stolen IP," one director snarled. "This could cost us millions in penalties." Gregory's face hardened, but cracks showed regret, perhaps, for enabling the entitlement. Derek sat outside, eavesdropping through the door, his world shrinking. He texted friends about corporate sabotage, but the replies were sparse. Emily's clause had become office lore, a cautionary tale whispered in elevators. As winter approached, the agency formally rejected Voss's bid, citing authorship irregularities. The stock plummeted another 5%. Headlines buzzing. Voss Capital stumbles on regulatory hurdle. Gregory issued a press release. Vague apologies. Promises of reform. Privately, he dialed Emily again. Voice softer. "Name your price to consult." She agreed. But on her terms, triple rate. Full credit in all documents. The first session was electric, Derek absent, Gregory deferential as she dismantled their botched frameworks. "This is how you build to last," she said, her words landing like quiet thunder. The room listened, the power shift palpable. Yet as she left, a lingering question hung. Was this victory, or just the start of mending deeper wounds? Repercussions echoed through the industry like aftershocks from an earthquake. Rival firms poached Voss talent, sensing blood in the water. Gregory faced a no-confidence whisper campaign from junior execs, his legacy tarnished by the nepotism scandal. Derek, stripped of his title, took a sabbatical that smelled like exile. Rumors swirled of him crashing on friends' couches in the Hamptons, applying to mid-tier funds with a resume padded by illusions. Emily thrived in her independence, her LLC booming with contracts from ethical players. She spoke at a fintech conference in San Francisco, sharing anonymized lessons in IP protection, her story veiled but resonant. Attendees nodded knowingly, some approaching afterward with similar tales of corporate theft. "How did you stay so calm?" one asked. Emily paused, eyes distant. Calm is the weapon they least expect. Back home, she reflected on the journey, the slow damming of resentment, the explosive release through that single clause. It wasn't flawless. Doubts crept in during quiet moments. Had she been too patient? Too forgiving of the system that chewed up competence? But the freedom outweighed it, choosing projects, setting boundaries, inspiring others like Mia, who left Voss to join her firm. One stormy evening, Gregory showed up unannounced at her brownstone door, rain dripping from his overcoat. "I underestimated you," he admitted, voice raw. "Derek. He's my blind spot." Emily stood firm, arms crossed. "Blind spots cost more than you think." He offered partnership stakes, but she declined. "License my work fairly, or walk away." He left defeated, the encounter leaving her with a bittersweet aftertaste. The story rippled outward. Mia's network shared it in hushed tones, empowering others to negotiate protections. Emily's clause became a blueprint, a quiet revolution in boardrooms, Yet as she gazed at the city lights, a moral quandary lingered. In a world built on uneven ground, does quiet revenge level the field, or just carve deeper divides? The echoes faded slowly, but the impact endured. Voss Capital restructured, ousting Gregory to a ceremonial role while installing outsider leadership. Derek faded into obscurity, his LinkedIn dormant, a cautionary tale of unearned dissent. Emily's firm grew into a boutique powerhouse, advising on ethical innovations. Her story a legend that inspired reforms. But in private, she pondered the human cost, the fractured families, the lost trust. Had her patience been strength or suppression? The question hung, unresolved, a reminder that even in victory, Mao Thuan lingers.